Hello, everybody. Welcome to another daily dose of gaming news and all that good stuff. And as always, I'll also publish on Rumble and on Patreon for extra support. Any kind of updates and the such usually I go about on Twitter X. And tomorrow I will have Midnight Suns episode for sure published. In terms of demos, still didn't record anything after Spiritfarer. So at this moment, I will see what I can find that might be worth trying to check out in terms of the game of the wish list that I have on Steam that have any kind of demo. Let's go to the news. Yesterday, I watched the. I managed to watch a little bit of the AMD CES keynote, whatever it is, and unfortunately, we didn't have any comprehensive information regarding RDNA 4. Um, the gaming part basically only focused here on the CPU launches of the rest of the X3D lineup. Very I don't know what the better term here to use, but very in line of in terms of uplift in performance from the Zen 4 to Zen 5. The rest of lineup again performs better. It has the dual CCD stuff there, but only one of the CCDs has the X3D cache, so it's in line with previous generation of the X3D against the the non X3D lineup. Um, a little bit of the boost, I think it's a little bit better than the previous generation and gives us basically in line the around 20 to 30% improvement on average regarding Zen 4. So not much else here to see. Good performance, but nothing extraordinary of, I think, worth mentioning here and going into detail. But yeah, the main thing from the keynote is that there was no RTNA 4 official announcement. Um, uh, Again, I think the main gist of the information from the information that I've been gathering is they have access to the keynote that Nvidia was presenting, and they kind of panic regarding, especially on the price of the lineup of GPUs, and they just cut down that RDNA portion of the keynote they were about to do because they entered in panic, and I will have to assume they thought they had like a good price to performance lineup, and they watched, especially on the 5070 and 5070 Ti probably, and they saw that they couldn't compete at the price they were expecting to launch the RDNA for. But yeah, we will have to wait. I will assume like a week or so they can put their shit together and present a more in-depth and comprehensive guide for the RDNA launch. We all know that there is not going to that isn't going to be launched any kind of high-end GPUs on this RDNA 4. The naming scheme is confirmed, which is the RX 9070 XT being the higher end of this lineup. The justification that they give is that the try to enter in parity with the naming scheme of the CPU stuff. Again, doesn't make a lot of sense. I think it's only going to confuse consumers because they're going to see the number, even though we know that for the CPU we got the Ryzen moniker there, while for the GPU we got the RX moniker before the numbering. But I think it's going to confuse a little bit, especially, I don't know, in laptops, but that's a very niche thing here. Um, yeah, um, the official information is we got 4 nanometer process, second gen AI accelerators, for gen ray tracing accelerator, second gen AMD Radeon display engine, whatever that is. A lot of marketing um, talk, which is optimized CPU compute units. I don't know what that means. Supercharged AI compute, improved ray tracing per compute unit, and better median encoding quality. Again, this doesn't say nothing. regarding in terms of numbers or something that we can analyze and have a grasp on. They did kind of media, a private media Q&A session or something like that before the keynote. That's why we have this this leaked a little bit before the keynote itself. We don't have nothing to guide us from, except it's this is the only graphic, official graphic, that we have kind of a decent idea what they're aiming for, which kind of goes in line to a certain extent of the rumors and expectations, which is basically this is the 40 series lineup in terms of supposedly performance, and this is the RDNA free kind of a thing, and then this is going to be the RDNA 4 and what they're going to try to fit in terms of performance. We'll have to assume the 9070 XT, which is going to be the highest that they're going to launch, might have a similar performance regarding the 7900 XT variant of RDNA free, and probably going to try to compete with the 4070 Ti. Again, we'll have to assume probably between the rasterization and the ray tracing, we might see an equivalence to the 4070 Ti in terms of expectations. I don't know, because again, there is not a lot of information. There is no like raw data number, like for example, how many SMs. The confirmation seems to be having that we might have 16 gigabytes of VRAM, but there is not a lot of information regarding like the memory setup and all that jazz. We don't have. It's a little bit tricky to go about the information that we have. We have some kind of overall detail, not even details, but information regarding the FSR 4 from the graphic that we have here. I think it's going to be exclusive to RDNA 4. It seems there is no definitive information regarding that, except that it's going to come out eventually. It's developed specially for RDNA 4 because supposedly they will have more NPU or whatever they are calling in terms of leveraging the fact that it's going to be an AI feature in terms of upscaling. Um, but supposedly there's going to be some kind of integration with 3.1 FSR version there. Again, there is very sparse details, very sketchy. And again, as you can see, we don't have nothing. We don't have clocks, we don't have cores. The only information is there is going to be a 4 nanometer process having probably 60 gigabytes of GDDR6 on the Navi 48. Even in Navi 44, we not even know the VRAM that is going to come out. So I have to assume they panicked when they probably got access to the information of the lineup in terms of the pricing of the 50 series. But yeah, again, it was a missed opportunity again for them to try to take ahead regarding Nvidia, which is it's a shame that he didn't do that. In terms of Nvidia, I didn't watch the keynote. This is most likely a very rough estimate. I watched some videos here and there of people that covered the thing, especially from Hardware Unbox, Gamers Nexus, and all that jazz, and tried to get around an aggregation of the information that was provided for that keynote. Again, a lot of AI talk, whatever. Interesting things coming from the lineup of the RTX 50 series. Supposedly, 5080 and 5090 are going to be launched 30 of January. So again, a lot of deceiving wording around all the charts and all the talking points. Um, Again, availability starting January. Again, 5080, 5090 launching 30 January, and then the 5070 lineup is going to be launched throughout February, if not mistaken. The prices is again starting points. Again, 50. Again, all of this price point depends on how it's going to perform. But again, 5080 is going to be starting $1,000, which is less than the 4080. It was launched with $1,200 basically. They managed to reduce a little bit on the in terms of price, around again $1,000. In terms of performance, again, it's very deceiving, the numbers that they give us. And then the 5090 supposedly has it in terms of specs the double of the 5080, and it's basically double of the price. The most interesting ones that you might see might be the 5070 Ti, because supposedly it has the same amount of VRAM that the 5080. It's in terms of cut down between these two GPUs is not that much, and we got a good amount of around $250 in terms of the price difference here. This might be the most interesting GPU, at least from the specs and from the perceived performance that we might have. The 5070, again, $550. Again, if again depends on the performance that it achieves. I'm not trusting NVIDIA first party numbers. Again, always wait for third party reviews, given Gamers Nexus, Hardware Unbox, or whoever you follow, to have a better perception of the performance and the price that it's going to be launched. Hopefully, it doesn't inflate too much after launching, but we might see some scalping happening on the 5090 for sure. The 5080, I'm not sure, depending on how much inventory they have to be launched. And this is basically the MSRP for the FE edition, so Founders Edition. AIBs for sure will inflate their own price. They have to make their own cut out of the product there. Um, Again, we've been seeing a lot of claims, especially on the fact uh, that there is a more detailed thing on their own blog, claiming that the 5090 performs the double of a 4090, the 5080 performs the double of a 4080, the 4070, the 5070 performs the double of the 4070, and all that jazz. Again, and this has a lot of caveats, especially here, taking account. This basically goes around in all the lineup to a certain extent. This is relative performance, so there is no a fixed FPS, so we can guide ourselves. So this is basically taking into account relative performance, given that the baseline in this case is a 4090 compared to a 5090, which is on green. And the notes here are very finicky and very suspicious, which it seems that it's 4K max setting, DLSSR SR performance, and DLSSR upscaling. I don't know what RR is on 40 series and 50 series. So we got frame generation on the 40 series. So all the results here are basically with fake frames. And then we have a new technology on the frame generation for this 50 series, which is MFG, so multi-frame generation, which supposedly can introduce or predict up to 3 frames, depending on the case. So supposedly can triple the fake frame rates that you're going to see. It's called the 4X mode. And the only number that I can kind of trust to be like apples to apples comparison is Plague Tale Requiem, because it only supports DLSS 3. So the 5090 is running on DLSS 3, so you got a better kind of relative performance between generations. But yeah, um, it's interesting that again it's only using DLSS in performance mode with ray tracing enabled. We only see like 40% off, and we have to take the rest of these 4 games, Cyberpunk, Alan Wake 2, Black Myth Wukong, as using this 4X mode. So supposedly it inflates the number of frames, um, so fake frames, and it's not a rasterization performance or raw performance. So we have to take this with a huge grain of salt, and I think it's going to be a little bit disappointing. But then again, depends also regarding, given that everything is with race traced on. usually in terms of relative performance is a little bit different regarding rasterization. They tend to, in terms of uplifting performance, it's different. So we might see better performance with rasterization in terms of uplift between generations, or not. Again, this is the numbers that we have, and this is not even numbers in terms of raw numbers, so we don't have a good idea to how it might be compared. Of, for example, we might have, like, for example, a 4090, people can take that number and inflate around 40% in the same conditions with a 5090. But yeah, we have to take in consideration how they are presenting this information. So be very skeptical about this. One of the things here is that this new lineup of GPUs will support DisplayPort 2.1b, so up until 8K, 165 hertz. But yeah, the most interesting thing is the price. Again, ultra expensive 5090, okay-ish 5080, and most interesting is the 5070 Ti and 5070. But then again, we will need to see third-party information regarding comparison with what we already have on the market to see if it is a good value or not to upgrade. Um, One of the most interesting things from this new generation is the fact that how they went designing the card itself in terms of cooling. Uh, Supposedly, this is going to have like a 2.5 slot design, the FE edition, comparative with the 49, which almost, I think it was around the 4 slot in terms of thickness, which is very interesting. As you can see, they got the double flow through, which is kind of a how it's a pull push configuration, which this one should be getting pulling air, full fresh air, and then pulling or pushing through the radiator. Again, I'm not assembled, I don't see how it is, but yeah, it's presenting itself as to be like a 2 to 2.5 thickness of the card itself, which is good. But yeah, again, this is the first party information. A lot of AIB is already presenting the lineup for the 50 series, and to a certain extent, I think AMD. I didn't see a lot of the RDNA 4 AIB partners presenting information, especially in the raw numbers and specifications. But yeah, we've been seeing a lot of the ASUS and the MSIs presenting the 5090s super duper editions. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this is going to line up. But then again, we have to wait until the end of the month for sure to have all the nitty gritty information to see how it compares with the previous generation. So take again, don't trust the 2x performance comparative to the previous generation, because again, it's a very specific scenario to try to achieve that number. But yeah, I don't see any more unless there is some raw numbers in terms of frame rates that we can show off. Again, I didn't see anything yet. Maybe tomorrow or something like that, or throughout the week, we might see a little bit more specific numbering in terms of uplifts in performance. And I expect to see something more on the rasterized. I think it's more interesting to see. I think there is some technology that they're going to present with DLSS 4 regarding memory compression. I covered this a few months ago. They were trying to leverage AI algorithm to compress the textures to take less VRAM memory, um, uh, to uh, to leverage that AI algorithm to compress better the textures, and then when decompressing, it doesn't that process doesn't take that much VRAM than the normal process on in terms of textures compression there. But yeah, I didn't see too much there. I will try to get a little bit more information than presented to you the best I can. But yeah, I think the main gist here: don't trust first party numbers. Wait until reviews come out and see if it is a good option to upgrade for with this generation or not. But yeah, so far it seems that we might have some interesting choices, but we need to wait for the reviews there. Got an update also on HDMI 2.2. I was hoping to see something about this, but we only have like official information now regarding the sorry, HDMI 2.2. Interesting enough, we have they managed to double the bandwidth compared to 2.1 HDMI, which is interesting. And if you're going to buy these upcoming cables of HDMI 2.2, uh, they are going to be certified. So don't trust those third-party cables that some of them are presenting as 2.2 specifications. Again, this new cable, in terms of specifications, is going to double the amount of bandwidth. I'm not sure. Again, there is this image here that tell us in terms of what it can handle in terms of specifications, how it presents 4K, 144 frames per let's say. We got how what it can handle, and how it compares itself to the previous HDMI. And they also have the latency indication protocol, which is similarly going to reduce latency and improve synchronization between audio and video signals, especially when you have several devices connected to the TV, and also to this kind of how do they call them? Uh, Goddamn site! It's a mess because I cannot underline and get the keynotes that I want to, especially for system configuration that also has audio video receivers or soundbars. Sorry, I think this is going to be a little bit better now with this HDMI 2.2. But yeah, basically from CS yesterday, this the thing that I managed to take out. I will try to see if there is anything more interesting to cover from there. But other than that, this is what I got from hardware. We got some stuff regarding gaming. Similarly, Resident Evil 4 Remake sold 9 million units, which is very interesting and pretty good because, again, from all the reviews, this is a pretty good remake. Goes in line with the remakes that Capcom has been making with Resident Evil series, and it's good to see that good games are selling good. Um, Here we got, for example, some data regarding the units sold. The first 3 million units were sold in just 2 days after launch. The 4 million mark was achieved early April of 2023. The 5 million was reached late July 2023, and then in 1 year anniversary they sold around 7 million copies, and now 2 million more were sold, which is always good to see. And also we got still the rumors that still persist so far is we might get at least some news this year. We'll have to wait and see. And the rumors insisted on kind of the atmosphere is going to be a setup like Resident Evil 4 remake in terms of gameplay and the such, and supposedly we're going to have more than one unkillable stalkers. um, and again, in terms of characters, again, we don't know exactly how this is going to do. Again, I think Resident Evil 7 and 8, I'm not sure if it is a complete cycle in terms of storytelling. I didn't play Resident Evil Village yet, but I'm not sure if they're going to continue that story or not. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see when more information is going to be launched from Capcom. And then last, we got this article here from this guy, Will Shan, which was Starfield lead quest designer, left Bethesda 2023. He supposedly did an interview with a podcast. And I think this demonstrates a little bit the bubble that these people live in, um, and how they approach the, um, the topic of game um, game length. And I think they start with the conclusion that they arrived at, and then they try to justify that conclusion by picking up, let's say, data that or cherry pick some data, or try to justify their conclusion that they reached at. And he said basically that a large portion of gamers are fatigued with 30 plus hour long games. I don't think so. And he said now we are reaching a point where people are fatigued, or a large section or a growing section of the audience is becoming fatigued at investing 30 plus 100 hour plus hours into a game because they already have that. Again, I think they're trying to justify this. Don't forget Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring. Um, they are trend-setting games. Baldur's Gate 3 managed to do a very complicated narrative-driven game and very long game. It's I think you can reach 80 hours. Sorry, 80 plus hours on that game. Same thing with Elden Ring. I did the live stream. I think I took 100 hours plus to do the run of the base game, and I did like to and I did explore most of the game itself. I think it has to do. These people reach the conclusion. They see that, for example, Bethesda launched games, or let's say Starfield. They launched last field. Only 70% of the people basically completed the main game. A lot of people quit in the end, and they reach the conclusion that people don't like long games. I think that they're reaching this conclusion with a lot of not good data, because my perspective, at least from my personal perspective, is uh, it doesn't matter if the game is long or short. What it matters is how you deliver that content, how you design the game around that content. If you're designing a game that it's going to be long, how are you going to incentivize the player to continue play the game, and how you design around it to, even if it is a long game. I think it's how about you how you try to design a game that might be long, and how you incentivize a player to continue play that game. It's not because, for example, Starfield has huge amount of problems, and I think they didn't design the game well enough to hook the player on continue to play the game even after, for example, the main storyline ended up. And I think they are taking the wrong conclusions with that. And one of the explanations, one of the justification that it tries to go about is they already have the games that they will continue to come back to, and adding another one to the list is a tall order. It's always a tall order, so we're seeing the resurgence of short games again. They are taking the wrong conclusions, especially in this couple of years. For example, we got the AAA games. We got, for example, Star Wars Outlaws, probably Dragon Age Veilguard, supposedly Concord. They are all triple games that we can assume that they are longer games, in the sense that the narrative and the side quests and all that jazz will take long time. They are launching slop games, and usually indie independent developers or indie studios, usually in terms of resources, they don't have a lot of they cannot allow huge budgets, so usually they tend to focus on shorter games by the extension, or they don't have a lot of resources and budgets to stretch too much in terms of how they can perceive or make a big game per se. And and I think people prefer to have a short but a good short game than have a average long game, because the experience that they take out of that short game is better than the one that it's we might see. For example, let's take the example of Starfield, which is supposedly not that good experience, uh, given in technical terms or even in story-wise terms and gameplay scenario that we can encounter Starfield. It's below average, and they compare itself a little bit more, for example, with Fallout 4 and even with Skyrim. Skyrim is by itself technically is not also an excellent game, but the thing that Bethesda had always counted on having their games having a long longevity is at least they had a good mod support on their games, and they incentivized that. But since at least since Fallout 4 came out, we've been seeing a lot of their own tweaks and pernicious strategies for them to monetize mods, and that remove all the incentive of people going around and doing mods for the love of the game. Because before, for example, Skyrim and even Fallout 4, and also Fallout 3, the mod scene was because people loved the idea and the potential that the main game had, and they worked and tried to trick around and improve the game by itself. And when you reach a point, for example, with Starfield, which you have like the Bethesda store and all that jazz, you're giving more of a financial incentive of the mod scene than for the love of the game itself, because people don't love the base game, so they don't see a huge potential to work on that game to improve it. And the ones that will work on mods to try and improve the game, let's say, they are financially incentivized. So to a certain extent, we might not see that love on the craft of the mod itself. But that's another conversation. But he gives the justification of people wanted shorter games, and again, all this conversation runs around on shorter games. I don't know if he's trying to justify, for example, like AAA games now need to have only 5 hour gameplay, but again, if you're going for that, you cannot charge 70 you can charge 70 bucks if the game is really excellent. You can charge 70 bucks for a shorter game, let's say, as long as the experience is worth, for, at least for the consumer, those $70. But yeah, he goes around and said, I just play mouth washing again. I didn't play this game, and it's only like 3 hours long at most. It's a very short experience, but part of the benefit is that the community engagement around mouth watching is only possible because everyone who is a fan has actually played through it all way to the end, and that's important for the engagement with the story and the product. Again, I think he has the wrong perception here. Again, independently of the game duration, if the game can still hook you to the end, even if it is a longer game, the conversation around that game being short or not, as long as it's good, the conversation is there, and you can see this, for example, with Elden Ring, how the conversation around Elden Ring, the lore, and the conversations around the speculation of the story of the and the setup of that game is, it's still ongoing and strong and healthy, at least from my perception. And I don't think it has to do anything if it is shorter or longer than other games. And he continues here trying to justify the length of a game. So mouthwashing is a huge hit because it's short. No, you're taking the wrong conclusion here. You're trying to justify a conclusion. The mouthwashing is a huge hit because it is a good story and a good game, independently if it takes 3 hours long or if it takes 50 minutes. And of course, then he falls it kind of slips here. There are other factors into that. The execution, nice iconic art, all that kind of stuff. That's what it makes this mouthwashing, having good feedback from players, is because of this. It's not because it's short. It's because it is a good experience despite of being a short game. And then he continues to try and go about and retract that, but that game doesn't succeed nearly as well if it were longer and had a bunch of side quests and miscellaneous content. The shortness is the point. Again, these people are not understanding that the shortness is not the point. It's how you go about and design the game by itself. And he continues here with a huge amount of red flags in the conclusion that they are reaching. And he said, "Oh, you can have a fan community conversation around the game that's much shorter because the shortness allows everybody to engage fully with the entirety of the product." That's not necessarily true. And he continues, most games that are 10 plus hours long, most people don't finish, and I will say 75% of your players only play through the first to 10 hours. Sorry. Again, I don't know where they're getting this data. Again, I will assume he has this data from Bethesda games. They tend to be a little bit longer, and if the game doesn't hook you on the beginning, it's a little bit tricky to hook you until the end, especially if it is a longer game. But yeah, basically the main gist here is then again, he goes about from sports game. He touches a little bit on Dark Souls and Elden Ring and MMOs. Again, to their own counterpoints before, mainly because again MMOs and even for example the sports game, everybody keeps on playing it, so it's not about the shortness or longevity of the game. uh, Again, I think this is might be a trend that and a fashion that these guys that are making games on AAA studios have completely the wrong idea what incentivizes players to invest or not their time on the game. And again, it comes to about if it is a good product or not. Um, but yeah, that's my main point out of this article is again, I think they continue to have the wrong idea. They are on their own bubble. They think just because you can make a gamer longer is going to sell better or not, or if you're going to hook up players or not and playing that game. It's a matter of size. It's not a matter of size. Is a matter of quality and how you go about doing the game by itself, what the idea that you have for that game. But yeah, this is what I got in terms of news. Sorry if I drag a little bit today, but we're going to wrap up with some good gaming deals. We have this one, Ash of Gods The Way. This is kind of a spiritual successor of the Ash of Gods Universe bundle, but it has a lot of different gameplay mechanics here. It's kind of a deck assembler to a certain degree, so it's not it's turn-based, but you play with cards instead of movements and abilities, which is interesting and seems to have very positive reviews all around. And it's at this moment in time 60% off. We got also still Plague Tale Requiem. This is 65% off if you buy it with a bundle of the first game. It's not available as a game itself, but Plague Tale Innocence is on sale by itself. So yeah, take it, pay attention if you want to check this game out. We got also Pacific Drive on the deluxe edition, only 40% off. I'm not sure what this encompass. I cannot perceive very well what it encompass. I don't know. Some extra content here, but I don't think it has to do with everything here. The full content edition has a lot of content, but it's a little bit more expensive side. But yeah, this game seems very good. Then on GOG, we got Deus Ex Human Revolution Director's Cut, 85% off. The sequel is not on sale at this moment, but at least this one it is. And it's very cheap, and I do recommend playing this game at this price point for sure. Then we got Shadowrun Trilogy, 82% off. Again, this is a trilogy of games which is turn-based. They are a little bit older, but still pretty good. And I think it's worth the experience here if you like cyberpunk themes with turn-based combat. I think this is a pretty good game for you to trilogy for you to enjoy. And then last you got Wartales, very similar to Jagged Alliance kind of games here. Group of mercenaries on a medieval setting, turn-based combat, squad management, and I think it has also some resource management here. But yeah, 40% off, and it's got good reviews all over the place. But yeah, I'll wrap up for today here, trying to bring more stuff for tomorrow. And I'll wrap up with a plug on my Patreon for access support. The access support is more in line for me to get around and having a better storage solution so I can have backups of the stuff that I do for my clients, and of course some extra space for the videos that I do for the channel. And with all that said, I hope you haven't fallen. And I'll see you in the next one. So until then, Kunamy Master out.